Our Old Testament reading is from Psalms, Psalm 40, beginning at verse 1 through verse 10. I waited patiently for the Lord. He inclined to me and heard my cry. He drew me up from the desolate pit, out of the miry bog, and set my feet upon a rock, making my steps secure. He put a new song in my mouth, a song of praise to our God. Many will see and fear and put their trust in the Lord. Happy are those who make the Lord their trust, who do not turn to the proud, to those who go astray after false gods. You have multiplied, O Lord my God, your wondrous deeds and your thoughts towards us. None can compare with you. Were I to proclaim and tell of them, they would be more than can be counted. Sacrifice and offering you do not desire, but you have given me an open ear. Burnt offering and sin offering you have not required. Then I said, here I am. In the scroll of the book it is written of me. I delight to do your will, O my God. Your law is within my heart. I have told the glad news of my deliverance in the great congregation. See, I have not restrained my lips, as you know, O Lord. I have not hidden your saving help within my heart. I have spoken of your faithfulness and your salvation. I have not concealed your steadfast love and your faithfulness from the great congregation. This is the word of the Lord. How about getting off these antibiotics? A prayer of thanks for ordinary healing, the infection that finally goes away. How about stopping eating when I'm full up? A prayer of thanks for simple acts of self-care. How about them transparent dangling carrots? A prayer of thanks for the small incentives we give ourselves that help us to do what we truly want to do. Now, I have two different translations for this one. How about that ever-elusive could have, which may be a prayer of thanks for even our regrets? Or how about that ever-elusive kudo? It's hard to know sometimes with Alanis Morissette. A prayer of thanks for unexpected words of affirmation. Thank you, India. Thank you, terror. Thank you, disillusionment. Alanis Morissette is a Canadian singer-songwriter who released an album called Jagged Little Pill in 1995 to enormous critical and popular response. At the time, she was just 21 years old, but had been actively performing since the age of 16. After that huge success in her professional life, Morissette decided she needed some time off, so she took it. She took some time to simply be. She traveled to India. Later, she said in an interview, about 3 years later, basically, I had never stopped in my whole life, hadn't taken a long breath, and I took 1.5 years off and basically learned how to do that. When I did stop, and I was silent, and I breathed, I was just left with an immense amount of gratitude and inspiration and love and bliss. And that's where the song came from. And I want to say right here, most of us can't take 1.5 years off to learn how to breathe. And I know that. We're pairing this 90s mid-tempo alt-rock hit with a psalm that precedes it by at least a couple thousand years. Each is a song of gratitude, but is that where the similarities end? I waited patiently for the Lord. He inclined to me and heard my cry. He drew me up from the desolate pit, out of the miry bog, and set my feet upon a rock, making my steps secure. He put a new song in my mouth, a song of praise to our God. One of the things we notice about the Psalms is their vivid use of imagery. At times, those images are meant to represent actual events, a raging battle, a desert wasteland. At other times, the images convey the inner landscape of the psalmist. They're metaphorical, not literal. Sometimes it can be hard to know at any given moment which one we are encountering. Is it the concrete or is it the metaphor? Take the line, "He inclined to me and heard my cry," the Lord. The vivid image we have is of God leaning over, leaning down, stooping, and coming close to hear the sad or frightened or frustrated cries of the person calling out. The image brings to mind a mother or father leaning down to scoop up a crying child and hold him in their arms. The image brings to our hearts the possibility of the nearness of God, whom we so often imagine as being far off in some other realm, heaven maybe. And now we understand that this may be a psalm about a person who is stuck in some version of actual quicksand or mud and experienced a miraculous rescue at God's hands. Or it may be a psalm about someone who was confronted with the pain of a muddy, swampy inner landscape, who found release and rescue by opening that landscape up to God's healing light. And suddenly we find this 90s rock song may not be all that far from this ancient text. One of the things I believe keeps us from deeper intimacy with God is our conviction that we don't have time for prayer. Yes, most of us don't have a year and a half to figure this out. Yet when I listen to "Thank You," I hear a number of quick prayers of gratitude, probably said on the fly, but strung together for the song. Everything from swallowing the last horse pill of that 10-day regimen to feeling the wheels touch down after a long journey, to making it through some truly terrifying experience in one piece, and sighing, "Thank you, thank you." Or for the psalmist, experiencing clarity after time in the emotional mire, feeling himself on a secure footing after a time of feeling utterly wobbly and insecure. Thank you. Thank you. Both psalm and song suggest a life infused with gratitude. The moment I let go of it was the moment I got more than I could handle. The moment I jumped off of it was the moment I touched down. Happy are those who make the Lord their trust, who do not turn to the proud, to those who go astray after false gods. The moment I started reading the psalm this week, sometimes this happens. One phrase just catches you and won't let go. And this week for me, that was the phrase, false gods. In the era in which this psalm was written, it's most likely that God's covenant people were on the verge of a transition between something called henotheism and monotheism. Monotheism, of course, is the belief that there is only one God. Henotheism is the belief that there are many gods, but that in your particular case, your particular God, in this case Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is the one to be worshipped. So it's entirely possible the psalmist was referring to the gods worshipped by other cultures, acknowledging their existence, but calling them false. It's also possible that the psalmist was reminding himself and the listener that there is only one God, and that any pretenders have to be understood to be illusions. Our false gods are many. By false gods, I mean the things we allow to take our focus and to consume our time and energy, as well as the things we rely on to save us from the right job, to the right person, to the escape found in the brownies, or the book, or anything we use to distract ourselves from the discomfort we find when we try to be still and know that God is God. Sacrifice and offering you do not desire, but you have given me an open ear. Burnt offering and sin offering you have not required. Then I said, here I am. In the scroll of the book it is written of me, I delight to do your will, O my God. Your law is within my heart. How about no longer being masochistic? How about remembering your divinity? Another of the things I believe keeps us from deeper intimacy with God is our hesitation about simply pausing and waiting and listening, as well as our absolute conviction that this is something other people do, but which we are personally not constitutionally designed to do. We try it, we sit down somewhere and we say, to God, here I am. And soon we're thinking, what was it I meant to put on the grocery list? It was something really obvious, like toothpaste or dish soap. Oops, sorry, God. But that right there, that is a deep spiritual practice. What just happened? It's the practice of opening our attention to something other than our inner monologue, allowing ourselves the space for our minds to wander, and then noticing and bringing our attention gently back to God's presence, God's voice. I would like to add that God's voice is not above reminding us about the toothpaste. It counts. If God counts the hairs on our heads, it stands to reason that the state of our teeth is also of interest to the Almighty. My point being, we try to sit in silence. And because we don't immediately have an experience of transcendent bliss, we feel we have failed or we're not cut out for this. We have not failed. This is when we need to cultivate what Buddhists call beginner's mind. Beginner's mind tells us whatever we're trying to do now, whatever we're doing for the first or maybe the 1,001st time, this is new, this moment. And it's fascinating. And we have no expectation of how it will go. Gone the preconceived notion of what real prayer looks like, or real meditation, or real openness to God's voice. There is just you or me and a modest block of time, say 15 minutes, and maybe a psalm to focus the mind, and a reasonable expectation of being able to close our eyes for a bit, or maybe rest them on something restful like a window box full of late summer petunias, or a picture of a beautiful landscape, or a candle. And wait, with no expectation of how it will go. And when the grocery list or the doctor's appointment or worries about someone we love pop into our head, we say inwardly, that's a thought. And then we let it go like a little tiny balloon. And then we bring our attention gently back to the expectation of God's presence. And when the alarm goes off, marking our 15 minutes, we rise and go about our day. And we have just participated in the radical reorientation the Psalms are all about. The reorientation to the goodness of God. I have not hidden your saving help within my heart. I have spoken of your faithfulness and salvation. Thank you, nothingness. Thank you, clarity. Thank you, silence. In the end, both singers have a decision to make. Will they keep their transformative experience to themselves, or will they sing about it? Will they move from private religion to one that is shared? To use a old-fashioned Christian concept, will they testify? Morissette wrote a song which made it to number 17 in the U.S. and number 1 in Canada, her homeland, in 1998. Most of us don't have much expectation of that level of testimony, but can we bring ourselves to mention, in the words of our first hymn, that God is the Lord and God has done wonders, even if those wonders are relatively tiny and modest. When we have small acts of healing, little moments of joy, tiny bursts of wonder at the beauty of a shooting star, can we become accustomed to giving God the credit? Can we nurture in ourselves the habit of saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, silence. And all thanks be to God. Amen.